Hi, my name is Graham Smith, and I'm one of the authors that helped develop the learning approach to mathematics that is found in our textbook as well as the video you are about to experience. To learn more about our approach to learning mathematics, visit the web address that accompanies this video. Now, enjoy the video. Multiplying decimal numbers. This video will help you multiply one-digit decimal numbers, multiply any two decimal numbers, multiply by powers of 10, estimate products, and use pi to find the circumference and area of a circle. Multiply decimal numbers. To multiply decimal numbers, multiply the digits in the same way that you multiply with whole numbers. The number of decimal places in the product must match the total number of decimal places in the factors. Taking a look at our example here, I have 0.04 times 0.2. Well, we're going to start by multiplying the numbers the same way that we did with whole numbers. So we're going to say 2 times 4 is 8. Now we just got to make sure we get the right number of digits behind the decimal in our answer. So the next step then is to make sure that the number of decimal places up here in my factors matches the number of decimal places down here in the product. So let's take a look. The first 0.04 has 2 decimal places. 0.2 has 1 decimal place. Altogether that is 3 decimal places. So down here in my product, the answer, I need to have 3 digits behind the decimal. So I take and add 2 zeros to make sure that I have 3 digits behind that decimal in my answer. Now let's take a look at some examples that will help us understand how to multiply decimal numbers. Example 1. Find the product of these two decimal numbers multiplied together. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with just the whole number pieces here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to start with the numbers here, 3 and 7. And if I take 3 times 7, that's going to give me 21. So those are going to be the digits other than 0 in this answer, 21. Now I just need to make sure that that has the correct number of decimal places behind it. So we look back up at the numbers we were multiplying together. And you'll notice the first number has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 digits behind the decimal. The second number doesn't have any digits behind the decimal. So what we need to have in our answer is 6 digits behind the decimal. Well, if I write 21, that's 2 digits behind the decimal. So I'm going to need to add 4 more zeros to get 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll put a decimal there. Then typically we write a 0 in front of the decimal. It just makes it a little bit easier to see where the decimal point is. So when I multiply these two numbers together, I get this answer of 0.000021. Let's take a look at example 2. We're asked to find the product of these two decimal numbers. We're going to start by just multiplying the digits, and we're not going to worry about the decimals. So I'm going to go through and multiply by 5. 5 times 4 is 20. Write down the 0, carry the 2. 5 times 8 is 40, plus 2 is 42. Carry the 4. 5 times 1 is 5, plus that 4 is 9. Now we're going to go through and multiply by 1. Well, that's just going to give us 4, 8, 1. Adding this up, we're going to get 0, 6, 17, carry the 1, 2, 7. So 2760. Those are going to be the numbers involved here. Now I just got to make sure I get the right number of decimal places in this answer. We go back up to our numbers. There were 3 digits behind the decimal in the first number and 1 digit behind the decimal in the second number. So that's altogether 4. So if we take our number 2760 and we want to have 4 digits behind the decimal is going to have to go right in front of that 2 so that I end up with 4 digits behind the decimal. Now it's time to check your understanding of multiplying decimal numbers. Hit pause on your video player and answer these guided practice questions. When you're done, hit play to see how you did. Question 1. Find the product of these two numbers. Well, first we're going to take and we're going to multiply the 9 times 3 together, which gives us 27. If I take a look, 9, the number 9 doesn't have any digits behind the decimal, but up here with the 3, it looks like there are 4 digits behind the decimal there. So we have to have a total of 4 digits behind the decimal in our answer. So I'll start with the decimal. Looks like I'm going to have to add 2 zeros in front of the 27 so that I get 4 digits behind the decimal in my answer. So I get a final answer of 0.0027. Question 2. Find the product of these two decimal numbers. Well, first, we're going to multiply the numbers together without the decimals. You'll notice I'm reorganizing these as well so that 345 is on top. Just makes the multiplication a little easier. Now I'm going to go through and multiply by 12. So we start with the 2. 2 times 5 is 10, carry the 1. 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9. Then 2 times 3 is 6. Now I'm going to go through and multiply by the 1. I'm going to get 5, 4, 3. Add that together. We get 0, 14, carry the 1. 7 plus 4 is going to give me 11, carry the 1. 1 plus 3 is 4. So I get 4140 are the digits. Now, if I go back to my problem, I have 1 digit behind the decimal there, 2 digits there, so I need to have a total of 3 digits behind behind the decimal in my answer. So I'm going to come and put the decimal right there. So I get a final answer of 4.140. Multiplying by a power of 10. Numbers that are powers of 10 have the number 1 and 1 or more zeros. To multiply by a power of 10, you can simply move the decimal place. So you can see here, I have a list of powers of 10 that are larger than 1. 10, 100, 1000, 10,000. Multiplying by these numbers will make our answer larger, and all we need to do is move the decimal to the right when we multiply by powers of 10 that are larger than 1. Over here, I have a list of powers of 10 that are smaller than 1. 0.1, 0.01, 0.001, etc. Multiplying by numbers that are smaller than 1 will give us a smaller answer. And so since these numbers are powers of 10, all we have to do is move the decimal place to the left to get an answer. Now let's take a look at some examples that will help us understand how to multiply by a power of 10. Example 3. We're asked to find the product here, and notice that I'm multiplying by a power of 10 that is larger than 1. So this is going to make our answer bigger. Since I have 2 zeros in this power of 10, that means I'm going to move the decimal place 2 places to the right to make this a larger number. So I'm starting out here with 15.73. Now, multiplying by this power of 10 with 2 zeros means I'm going to move this decimal 2 places to the right. So that's going to give me 1573. It's going to give me an answer of 1573. Example 4. Find the product of these two numbers. Well, here I'm multiplying by a power of 10 that is smaller than 1. So this is going to make our answer smaller than the original number we started with. So I start out with this 45.6. Well, let's look how many digits are behind the decimal in this power of 10. Looks like there are 3 digits behind that decimal. That means I need to move this decimal place in my answer 3 digits to the left to make this number smaller. So I go 1, 2, 3, which means I'm going to have to add a 0. So let's see, 0.0456. We'll write a 0 up front. And so I get 0.0456 for my answer. Now it's time to check your understanding of multiplying decimal numbers by powers of 10. Hit pause on your video player and answer these guided practice questions. When you're done, hit play to see how you did. Question 3. Find the product of these two numbers. Well, if you take a look here, I'm multiplying 5.6 times a power of 10, which is larger than 1. This is going to give us a larger answer. In this power of 10, I have 3 zeros, and that indicates I need to move this decimal 3 places to the right. So I start with 5.6. I'm going to move that decimal 3 places to the right. 1, 2, 3, which means I'm going to have to add 2 zeros there. So I get a final answer of 5,600. Question 4. Find the product of these two numbers. Well, you can see here that I'm multiplying by a power of 10 that is smaller than 1. So this is going to make a smaller answer. And in fact, I have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 digits behind the decimal. So since I have 5 digits behind the decimal, I'm going to need to move this decimal 5 places to the left. So we're starting with 17.3, and now we need to move that decimal 5 places to the left to make this answer smaller. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're going to have to add some zeros in there. And so it looks like we're going to get 0.30, 173, and we'll put a 0 out front. So it looks like my final answer there is 0.000173. Estimating products. A quick estimate of a product can be found by rounding each number to its largest place value and multiplying. Being able to estimate a product is very important because it will allow us to quickly check to see if an answer that we come up with is reasonable. Also, in the real world, a lot of times you have to multiply decimal numbers together. You don't have a calculator. Being able to estimate the product will allow you to quickly come up with a close approximation to what the multiplication problem should be. Now let's take a look at some examples that will help us understand how to estimate a product. Example 5. We're asked to estimate the product of these two numbers. Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to round each of these numbers to the largest place value. So let's take a look. In our first number, the digit 8 is in the largest place value. And if you look to the right of that, that digit is 9. So that tells us to round that 8 up. So it looks like a good approximation for that number will be 90. We're going to multiply that by the estimate of the next number. So our largest place value there is in the tenths place, which is the 6. And if we look to the right of that digit, it's 7. So that tells us we need to round that 6 up. So we're going to take 90 times 0.7. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we'll just ignore those decimals and we'll take 90 times 7. So 7 times 0 is 0. 7 times 9 is 63. So we get the digits 630. Now we got to make sure we get that decimal in the right spot. You'll notice we had one digit behind the decimal in our problem. So we need to have one digit behind our decimal in the answer. So that gives us a final simplified answer of 63.0, or we could just simply write 63. Example 6. Estimate the product of these two numbers. Well, again, we're going to round to the largest place value. In this case, it's that digit 4. Since the next digit to the right is a 5, that tells us we need to round that 4 up. So we're going to get 0.005, and we're going to be multiplying that times this next rounded value. And the largest place value there is the 3. Digit to the right is 1, so that 3 is going to stay the same. So we're going to be multiplying by 0.003. So we'll take 3 times 5 gives us 15. Now I want to make sure that I have 3 digits behind the decimal here, 3 there, so that means a total of 6 digits behind the decimal here. So writing the 5, there's 1 digit, 2 digits, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's where our decimal goes. We'll put a 0 up front so it's easy to see that decimal place. So when I estimate the product of these two numbers, I get 0.000015. Now it's time to check your understanding of estimating the product of decimal numbers. Hit pause on your video player and answer these guided practice questions. When you're done, hit play to see how you did. Question 5. Estimate the product of these two decimal numbers. So we'll start by rounding these to the largest place value. That is the 6 in that first number. The 9 tells us to round that up. So we get 7. The next number, the largest place value, is the 5. The 8 tells us to round that 5 up. So we're going to be multiplying 7 times 0.006. 7 times 6 is 42. Now I just need to make sure I get the correct number of digits behind the decimal in our answer. Looks like in the problem itself I had 3 digits behind the decimal here, so I need to have a total of 3 in my answer. So the 2 is 1, 4 is 2, and then I need to add one more 0. So I get an answer of 0.042 for my estimate of these products. Question 6. Estimate the product of these two numbers. Here's the largest place value, the 3. The 4 to the right of that tells us to keep that 3 the same. So I'm going to take 0.003 times, here the 6 is in the largest place value. The number to the right of that, 5, tells us to round that 6 up. So we're going to get 0.007. So we'll start by taking 3 times 7 is 21. And now I need to make sure that I have 3 plus 3, a total of 6 digits behind the decimal in my answer. So with the 21, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Put a 0 out front. So it looks like when I estimate the product of these two numbers, I get 0.000021. Use pi to find the circumference and area of a circle. The number pi, and we will approximate pi to be 3.14, is used to calculate many things, including the area and circumference of a circle. To find area or circumference using pi, first we will need to understand the relationship between the circle's diameter and the circle's radius. Let's take a look at some definitions. The diameter of a circle is the distance across a circle through its center. Down here in my picture, here is the diameter, starting from one edge of the circle, going all the way across the circle, passing through its center. The radius of a circle is the distance from the circle's center to the edge of the circle. You can see here I have the radius in my picture. It starts at the center and goes all the way out to the edge of the circle. One important fact about the radius and the diameter is that the radius is half the diameter. So if we started with a circle that had a diameter of 12 inches, the radius of that circle would be 6 inches. And if we started with a circle whose radius was 4 feet, the diameter of that circle would be 8 feet. So the relationship between radius and diameter, the radius is always half of the diameter. Let's take a look at some more definitions. The circumference of a circle is its perimeter. So if we start at one point on the circle, travel all the way around the outside, the circumference would be the distance all the way around the outside edge of the circle. To calculate the circumference of a circle, we can use one of two formulas. First, we can use this formula, c for circumference equals 2 times pi times the radius. Or we can simply use c, the circumference, equals pi times the diameter. The area of a circle is the number of square units that are needed to completely cover the circle. So you can see here in my picture, if we want to find the area of that circle, we need to find how many square units, whatever unit we're measuring with, square inches, square feet, square meters, how many of those square units it would take to completely cover the circle. To calculate the area of a circle, we use capital A for area equals pi times the radius squared. Now let's take a look at some examples that will help you understand how to find the circumference and area of a circle. Example 7. Find the circumference and area of the circle pictured below. Well, you can see in my picture I have a plate, and the radius of this plate is 5 inches. Let's start by calculating the circumference of this circle. So the formula for circumference is pi times diameter. You should always start by writing the formulas. These formulas for circumference and area are going to be formulas that most instructors are going to want you to have memorized. So starting by writing the formula, and again, write that off the top of your head if you can, the more times you write this formula, the better chances that you're going to get it memorized. So now that we have the formula written, circumference equals pi times diameter, we're going to plug in this information. Circumference is what we're trying to find. We know pi. We're going to use 3.14 for pi. Well, we want to find the diameter of this circle. Well, if we take a look, if the radius is 5 inches halfway across, then the distance all the way across, which is the diameter, is going to need to be 10 inches. So I'm going to plug 10 up here into my formula. And notice I'm taking 3.14 times 10, which is a power of 10. So all that is going to do is move my decimal one place to the right. So the circumference of the circle is going to be 31.4. Since we are measuring in inches, I want to write my answer in inches. Now let's take a look at the area. The formula for area is pi times radius to the second power. Now I just want to plug in that information. We know what pi is, 3.14. The radius of this circle was 5 inches, and I need to take that 5 to the second power. Now I'm simply going to follow the order of operations to evaluate this expression on the right. So we would start with 5 to the second power. Well, if I take 5 to the second power, that means 5 times 5, or 25. So I'm going to have 3.14, and I'm going to be multiplying that times 25. Now that is a calculation that we cannot do in our head. We don't want to perform this calculation over here in our formula, so we're going to go over here and we're going to find some scratch work and actually perform this multiplication. So we're taking 3.14 times 25. 5 times 4 is 20, carry the 2. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 2 is 7. 5 times 3 is 15. Now we'll go multiply by the 2. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 1 is 2. And 2 times 3 is 6. Add this together, 0, 5, carry the 1. 1 plus 5 is 6, plus 2 more is 8. And then 1 plus 6 is 7. So notice we had 2 decimal places up here in our problem in 3.14, so I need to have 2 digits behind the decimal in my answer. So over here for the area of my circle, I get 78.50. Now, area is always measured in square units, so since we were starting with inches, this is going to be inches squared, or you could simply write square inches. Now it's time to check your understanding of finding the circumference and area of a circle. Hit pause on your video player and answer this guided practice question. When you're done, hit play to see how you did. Question 7. Find the circumference and area of the circle pictured below. You can see I have a barrel, and the diameter of that barrel is 40 centimeters. Let's go ahead now and calculate the circumference of the top or the lid of that barrel. So the circumference is pi times diameter. Now we're just going to plug this information in. Pi is 3.14. Diameter is 40. So I need to multiply 3.14 times 40. So we're going to come off on some scratch work. Perform this multiplication. So I have 3.14 times 40. So first going through and multiplying by 0, I'm just going to get 3 zeros. Now when I go and multiply by 4, 4 times 4 is 16. Carry the 1. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. And then 4 times 3 is 12. Add that up. Now there were 2 digits behind the decimal in my problem, so I need 2 behind in the answer. So it looks like the circumference of the circle is 125.6. And notice that measured in centimeters, so I want to write centimeters at the end of my answer there. Okay, now let's take a look at the area of this circle. So we start with the formula, area equals pi times radius squared. Now we'll plug in the information. Pi is 3.14. The radius of my circle, well, the diameter was 40, so all the way across is 40. Halfway across then is going to be 20 centimeters. So I'll put 20 up here. Again, I'm going to do this multiplication, so I'm going to come over on some scratch work, and we're taking 3.14 times 20. Going and multiplying by 0 will give us 3 zeros. Now we're going to go through and multiply by 2. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 1 is 2. And 2 times 3 is 6. Add this together, 0, 8, 2, 6. There were 2 digits behind the decimal in my problem, so I need 2 in the answer. So when I come up here for my answer, I'll get 62.5 0.80. And now since that was area, I want to make sure that I'm writing these units in square units, so I could write centimeters squared, or I could have just written square centimeters. If you found this video helpful, I encourage you to check out our other videos that we have on YouTube, or visit the web address that accompanies this video to learn more about our approach to learning mathematics.